you're an idiot. You shouldn't have left the butter knife in the patient's skull. Well, how did that even happen? So that's one. Healthcare. Where do I even start with this? Healthcare is as much in my wheelhouse as like walking and Stephen Hawking? Yeah, Stephen Hawking, the smart guy in a wheelchair. Yeah, we're gonna give it a shot anyway. Let's talk about the ideal. Let's talk about how it should be. You have something that says you're a tax-paying citizen of the state. With that, you can go into any hospital, any clinic, and get whatever care you need. You need, not you want. Prescription drugs, I think those should be covered. It's no different than getting surgery to fix your bone. If you need prescription drugs to take care of your PTSD, which, by the way, is called shell shock as far as I'm concerned. George Carlin, rest in peace. Oh yeah, and wait times. We can spend all this extra money on all this crap, Ukraine, but we can't build extra hospitals. Get the fuck out of here. No, we're not doing that. We're gonna build capacity to where we can deal with people as is needed. Take note how on COVID, we gotta flatten the curve. You and I have to stop going to our job, have to stop providing for our families, have to be 6 feet apart, have to wear a mask, can't go to football games anymore to flatten the curve. But God forbid we train more nurses and doctors or build more hospitals. That's not an option. We gotta trample on some people's rights. We can't solve the problem practically. Anyways, so that's kind of the gist of the ideal. Make it simpler. Make it to where you just literally walk in and get taken care of. How do we get there? The biggest part of getting there is get rid of as many middlemen as possible. All right? Lawyers are at the top of this list. And then things like accountants, managers. I'm sure that hospitals are similar to schools and where there's way too many of them nowadays, in part to deal with what insurance you have, what is covered by insurance. Anyways, like I said, we're not going to rant about how it is. I feel like I've done that a lot, though. Okay, whatever. Let's talk about how we're going to get to the ideal again. So since this will be government run, not for profit, not 1/4 at a time, we got to talk about what's the incentive. Governments are inherently inefficient, and I'm talking about making largely private industry more efficient by turning it to the government, which sounds like the biggest oxymoron this side of your mom's ass. So to get there, we have to provide some kind of incentive. I don't think you can replace one overlord with another and keep the same incentive structure. So I would suggest something along the lines of, rather than money, I would say those who do well, the individuals and then the hospitals in general, would get more time off. I would say all hospitals, all employees would start with like a month off, and then the tippy top best would get, I don't know, 2 or 3 months out of the year paid for off. So how do you judge these hospitals? I would say, since everybody is getting the service for significantly cheaper now and much more hassle-free, every patient who is helped by the hospital has to get the service, fill out a detailed form saying how their service was, list every person they worked with, explain how well they were treated, how well they were helped, how effective and efficient, and all these, just a detailed form every patient fills out that's fed into a computer, and that kind of does its whole algorithm thing that YouTube's so great at. Maybe we can apply that for something that's actually good and rate these hospitals. Let's get to the next chunk of money savings. Malpractice insurance. It is crazy expensive. It was kind of all over the place, depending on the state you were in, which I guess is based on the laws that you have to abide by. 50 to 200 grand a year in malpractice insurance. That's the average payout, 350 grand. 350. The average payout of malpractice. Now, I don't think you could pay me enough money to replace my left arm if you accidentally amputated the wrong bit of me or like killed me or something, right? The dollar figure is absolutely irrelevant, but it does go towards making things right. That said, I think it needs to be a benefit risk analysis. If everybody can just go to a hospital and do preventative treatment for free, I think that way offsets the reality that in the event that shit happens, you'll get paid less, significantly so. How many studies are out there that say if healthcare was more affordable, it would actually make things cheaper because people would go and get advice in preventative healthcare, and it wouldn't get to the point where you have to do these crazy expensive procedures where crazy experienced experts are needed. I bet there's something to it there, to where you hit a tipping point of if people have access to it, you'll have less suffering, if you will. If you don't have lawyers involved, well then how do you determine these cases? I would say twofold. One, have a list that makes it strictly criminal to do certain things as a doctor, as a nurse, as whatever. And that will essentially boil down to gross negligence. And if that happens, then the court's already there, the law's already there, you can't do that. Just go through the standard avenues. And I bet the malpractice insurance as it is kind of has those rules as well, that if you do something really stupid, no, we're not going to pay for you. You're an idiot. You shouldn't have left the butter knife in the patient's skull. Well, how did that even happen? So that's one. Now part two, when it is a more gray area case, where somebody, I don't know, like gets an infection after the surgery, and you look over all the footage, and it's like, well, they went through all the procedures, they did everything by the book. And that will be judged by peers. Other doctors will look and review and see if what was done was in the wrong. And then that just simply goes on the doctor who did it, or the nurse or whoever. It goes on their record, and the people will be able to view the doctor's records. And then another part of getting there is you don't just flip a switch and do this. I would propose starting a test hospital, taking a hospital that's already running, or building a brand new one from scratch. You know, you fine tune and you refine it, and you slowly expand into all the hospitals. And then the final kicker, paid for by taxes. I would say there would be a tax specifically tied to this, and it would modulate based on how we do. This means literally the money cannot be touched for anything other than healthcare. And not in the sense of like, oh, it's the end of the year, we still have budget left over, spend. If I will put mechanisms in place to not do that. Like if you don't need the money, we overestimated how much you need, that money goes back to the fucking people. I'm not a big fan of socialism, but I like to take the best things of some of these concepts, and I feel like that is one of the best parts of socialism. Is I'd like to think as Americans, as America, we're so great, we're so awesome, that we can take care of each other. I will proudly pay the tax if I know my tax goes towards healing your son or daughter, or your mom or your dad. I will pay that all day. I will go out of my way to pay that. Now, if I know my tax is going halfway around the world to buy bullets for people to kill each other, I'm going to have a different mentality on that. But that's not what we're discussing here. So that's kind of my theory. I think as a species, we ought to take care of each other, and paying into a pool of money to help each other out as strangers, because we're not as tight-knit of community, we're not a tribe anymore, is a good way to attain that. I'll say it again, way outside of my wheelhouse, like so freaking far, you measure it in light years, okay? This deserves a Rev 0 more than anything, and probably anything I'll do for a while, I expect this thing to get revved a lot. Maybe it's all just wishful thinking, but yeah, that's how some of the best things start. You think it's coming out of left field, and the next thing you know, you're doing it. So let's try to achieve that ideal. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.